Hi, I am Mohammadullah from Kudos English. In this video, I'll be reading story The Wonderful Tea-Kettle from our English textbook, that is Real English. So let's begin. The Wonderful Tea-Kettle. A long time ago in Japan, there was an old priest who lived in a temple and was very devout. He was also very poor. He cooked his own rice, boiled his own tea, swept his own floor, and lived frugally, as an honest priest should do. One day, the kettle in which he boiled water for his tea broke, and he did not know what to do, as he had no money to buy a new one. But the next morning, behold, a shiny brass tea kettle was sitting outside his door. The priest was overjoyed. He built a fire in the square fireplace in the middle of the floor. A rope and chain to hold the rice pot and tea kettle hung down from the ceiling. Soon the fire blazed merrily. At the side of the fireplace, on the floor, was his tray filled with tiny teacups, a pewter tea caddy, a bamboo tea stirrer, and a little dipper. The priest swept the ashes off the edges of the hearth with a little broom made of hawk's feathers. He was just about to put on the tea when "Suzz, suzz" sang the shiny tea kettle spout, and then "Patari, patari" said the lid, as it flapped up and down, and the kettle swung backwards and forwards. "What does this mean?" said the old priest with a start. Wonders of wonders! The spout of the kettle had turned into a badger's nose with its big whiskers, while from the other side sprouted out a long bushy tail. "Ho, ho!" cried the priest, and in terror he dropped the tea caddy, spilling the green tea all over the matting. Now 4 hairy legs appeared under the kettle. The strange thing, half badger and half kettle, jumped off the fire and began running around the room. To the priest's horror, it leapt on a shelf, puffed out its burning belly, and began to beat a tune with its 4 paws as if it were a drum. The old priest's pupils, hearing the racket, rushed in. After a lively chase, upsetting piles of books and breaking some of the teacups, they caught the badger and squeezed him into a keg used for storing pickled radishes. They fastened down the lid with a heavy stone and felt sure that the strong odor of the radishes would kill the beast. No man could survive such a smell, and a badger certainly couldn't. The next morning, the tinker of the village called in, and the priest told him about his strange visitor. Wishing to show him the animal, he cautiously lifted the lid of the cask. After all, the badger might be still alive, in spite of the strong vinegar pickles, and lo, there was nothing but the shining brass tea kettle. Fearing that the utensil might play the same prank again, the priest was glad to sell it to the tinker. On his part, the tinker secretly thought the priest had been dreaming, and he gave another kettle in exchange for it, and some cash too. He carried it proudly to his junk shop, though he thought it felt unusually heavy. The tinker went to bed as usual that night with his tiny paper-shaded lamp just behind his head. About midnight, hearing a strange noise like the flapping up and down of pod lid, he sat up in bed, rubbed his eyes. There was the bewitched tea kettle covered with fur and sprouting out legs. In short, it was turning into a hairy beast. "Don't beat me or shut me in a vinegar keg," it said, "because I'm really kind-hearted and wish you well." "What can I do for you?" asked the tinker. "Feed me a little rice now and then, and don't put me on the fire as that stupid priest did. Look here." Going over to a corner of the room and taking a fan from the rack, the badger climbed up on the frame of the lamp and began to dance on its one hind leg, waving the fan with its forepaw. It played many other tricks until the man started up, and then the badger turned into a tea kettle again. Next morning, the delighted tinker hired a professional showman to build a little theatre and stage. Then he ordered an artist to paint scenery with the sacred mountain Fujiyama in the background and cranes flying through the air, a crimson sun shining through the bamboo, a red moon rising over the waves with golden clouds and tortoises and such like. Then he stretched a tight rope of rice straw across the stage. Handbills were stuck up in all the barber shops in town, and wooden tickets branded with "Magic Tea Kettle Performance. Admit 1" were sold. The house was speedily filled, the people coming in parties, bringing their teapots full of tea and picnic boxes full of rice and eggs and other refreshments, because they came to stay all day. Mothers brought their babies with them. The children enjoyed it most of all. Then the tinker, dressed up in colorful clothes with a big fan in his hand, came out on the platform. He made a polite bow and set the wonderful tea kettle on the stage. At a wave of his fan, the kettle ran around on 4 legs, half badger and half kettle, clanking its lid and wagging its tail. How the children shouted! Next it turned into a badger, swelled out its body and beat a tune on it like a drum. It danced on the tight rope and walked the slack rope, holding a fan or an umbrella in its paw, stood on its head, and finally a flourish of its master's fan became a coal brass tea kettle again. The audience were wild with delight. As the fame of the wonderful tea kettle spread, many people came from great distances to see it perform. Year after year, the tinker exhibited the wonder until he grew immensely rich. Then he retired from the show business and out of gratitude took the old kettle to the temple again and deposited it there as a precious relic. The old priest was given a goodly sum of money to do nothing else but take care of it. And all his life it had all the food it wanted. After his death, it turned into an ordinary kettle and has stayed so ever since. If you don't believe it, you can go to the temple someday and see it for yourself. Alright, so that's it for today. See you next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.